Hey gang, one quick thing before I start this video. Thank you for your patience. I know this one took a lot longer to get out. I really appreciate it. Just school, work, all the good stuff's been rough. I had a quick idea. If you guys are interested, please let me know. Of reading off subs at the end of my videos. If that, I thought about doing it for this video, but I looked through my sub list of recent subscribers, and it seems a lot of people use like their full name, and so I don't know if that has like privacy concerns. But if that's something you're interested in, just to encourage that, or encourage subscribing and reward people who are subscribing, because I mean, it means a lot to me. I appreciate it a ton. It helps the channel a ton. If that's something you're interested in, leave a comment regarding that. I'm curious. I don't see a lot of creators do it, but a lot of creators also have a ton of subs. They do it for like Patreon and stuff, but I mean, my channel is so small scale that I think it would be totally okay to do that. Just leave a comment below if that's something you're interested in. That's all. So enjoy the video. Again, so much love to you guys. Thank you for the patience, the subs, the likes, comments, engagement. Such a positive community so far, and I'm really, really proud of what you guys are building for me. Basically, I just make the videos, you guys make the community, and you guys are doing such a great job. Thank you so much. Enjoy the video, please. Hey gang, hope y'all are doing well. Thank you so much for your patience. I know the upload schedule has been kind of whack. I'm gonna keep shooting for one video a week. I just need to get my schedule kind of sorted out. I've got finals coming up the next few weeks and some personal life stuff, but I will still be trying to shoot for at least like a video every like 10 days or so, something like that. Anyways, I'm excited to do this guide on Frost because I discovered that I do think genuinely he is one of the best frames in the game at max investment. And to me, it's not apparently obvious, but like once you get this build put together, I think you'll understand exactly why I find this frame so good. Frost is a support frame at the end of the day. He can't do a whole lot of killing on his own, but the buffing and the debuffing that he provides, which is like our definition of a support, is so insane in almost every piece of content, and I think it's really worth looking into at this frame that I think most people regard as a little bit boring, which he can be. But genuinely, like with this setup, I want you to give him a chance and understand that this frame is a lot more bonkers than I think he appears to be on the surface. He gives like Trinity and Wisp and stuff like a run for their money. I think he's genuinely really, really strong, for reasons that we'll get into here. Thankfully, Frost is one of the more easier to acquire frames, thank God. There are two primary methods, one being Exta on Ceres. This is the Let Krill Captain Vor duo boss fight. Not a significantly difficult boss fight at all, pretty easy to do runs of. And then Circuit is the other method. You can check the Circuit's path and see how close you are to Frost being available. The upsides and downsides are not very significant. The main thing is with the boss fight, Exta, the node, you can get miter parts, and the miter is a really good utility weapon and a great incarnate weapon, and I believe twin gremlin parts and blueprint as well. Not sure how that's a mastery fodder weapon as far as I'm concerned, but the miter is very good, and alongside that you'll get the frost parts. So you're going to want to farm the miter at some point for mastery fodder or for other reasons, if you want to use it. So that is a good choice. But in the circuit, when you do circuit and you unlock a frame, one of the unlocks will always be one of their augments, and Frost is quite augment reliant, and so if you're able to get like the two really good augments from circuits reward path, that could be really worth it. Generally, I would suggest that you just do the boss fight, but if you find circuit enjoyable, then you can get yourself a free augment. That augment will either cost you your standing, if you're max rank standing, which if you're a new player, I'm assuming that's not the case, or it'll cost you like 10 plat, generally speaking. So whichever approach you decide to take, the drop rates are totally acceptable and fine. You can spam the boss fight, you'll get the miter parts too, and the twin gremlins as well. So both of these approaches are fine. Pick one, stick with it. Let's get to abilities. Alrighty, we are here in the Sanctum, and I'm going to do a little bit of an ability display here. So, starting with Frost's passive, which I will use his one to demonstrate, but don't worry about that, I'll explain in a second. Frost's passive is he gains armor based on how many enemies within affinity range, which I believe by default is like a 30-45 meter radius. Basically, like, don't worry about it, it's a good range. Enemies affected by cold within affinity range will give him 50 armor per target, I believe up to 1,000. In addition, his cold status, which is like 10 stacks, applies a freeze, Those stacks before that make enemies slower. Really good status. Increases crit damage against targets based on how many stacks of cold they have on them. But basically, his abilities apply cold, and that cold duration is doubled. Those are his two passives. Really, really strong. Pretty competent. Armor means a decent bit for a lot of the game until you get to super endgame. And so getting bonus armor for doing what your frame is already doing is quite good. Frost also has armor scalings on some of his abilities, so this passive is really, really solid, especially relative to his old passive, which I think was like a 10% chance to freeze melee enemies that hit him. Pretty absurd. But yeah, his passive is great. Getting onto his freeze, this ability is as basic as it gets. Basically, you shoot out a little beam, like so. It'll freeze the target hit, and targets around it will get less cold. This means their animations are slowed, and they will take a little bit more crit damage, but not nearly as much as the primary target here, who has 10 stacks there. These guys had 6. Also, just to note here, the indicator for my passive is in the upper right hand next to my health and shields. There's 600, that means I'm getting 600 armor, and this can go up to like 1,000 or something like that. Yeah. So really, really solid passive, and this first ability is pretty boring. It gets the job done, and multiple casts can freeze enemies. It's only 25 energy, so you can spam it, but when we get to Frost's 4th ability, this ability will basically become irrelevant. Do note that in lower levels, this ability can like kill. It does damage, it's just not notable damage. But because you acquire Frost pretty early on, just be aware that this ability does like pretty okay damage to level 20s, level 30s, but the freeze is really where it's at. And once you get to late game and my build, you will only be casting this ability for its augment, so do keep that in mind. Okay, moving on to Frost's 2 is Ice Wave. Unfortunately, this ability is a real stinker. You send out these little ice waves in the name. This will apply 6 cold stacks to the enemies, and so 2 casts will freeze. The targeting is whack. As you can see, I cast it on that entire group of enemies, but a lot of enemies were just not subject to it. Unfortunately, this ability is a dud. I don't like saying that in my guides very much, because it feels kind of bad. But Frost is still a bit outdated, despite being amazing, and every Warframe is realistically allowed to have one bad ability. And Ice Wave just happens to be that. You'll replace it with a Helmet, basically is what I'm saying. You get Frost like fairly early on, so this ability will allow you to kill enemies at a low level, but even like once you get to like Pluto and Sedna, and definitely past the Steel Path, this ability will become completely useless, no matter how cool it can kind of look. So just and look at the targeting, it's so funky. So just be aware of that. I do hope this ability gets changed at some point, because it is completely useless past a certain point in the game. And being out an ability, while not being awful thanks to the helmet system, it still feels kind of bad because it feels like you don't really have a complete kit. So yeah, Ice Wave, its damage can kill at low levels, but anything past that, it is a completely worthless ability, unfortunately. You can freeze people like this, but once we get to Frost 4, you'll understand why that has completely no use. This is a 50 energy ability. Your ultimate does everything it does better. Okay, so you need 2 casts of the 2 to freeze. This ability costs 50 energy, and then your ultimate, your 4, does that with 1 cast, easier, more effective, and therefore costs the same amount of energy as 2 casts of your 2. It's a sad state of affairs for Ice Wave, and that's okay. It's a product of its time, but this is the part of Frost Kit I really do hope gets some sort of buff, some sort of rework, some sort of adjustment. No time in the near future, but this ability just stinks, so we're going to move on. Okay, moving to an ability that is certainly worth casting, we have Snow Globe. So all this is a defensive bubble, like so. You can shoot out of it, you can shoot into it, which you used to not be able to. That was pretty whack. And you can dispel it with your 1. So casting freeze on it will pop it. That will deal cold damage to enemies and apply cold to them as well. So a couple things to note about this ability and why I think it's quite good. This is one of the best defensive abilities in the game in terms of protecting an area. And the way it works is essentially you will press 3 and it will gain 4 seconds of invulnerability. During this time, it will absorb the damage that it would normally take, but it's invulnerable, and reinforce itself after those 4 seconds. I believe there is a health cap on it of 1 million, something like that. But regardless, what that means is this means of defense stays relevant for a long time in terms of like game scale. Early game, it'll absorb damage, protect you. Late game, it'll absorb damage, protect you. The damage of the enemy scales, but because of that, Snow Globe is able to scale with it. Now, can it go turbo late game? That has yet to be seen. I don't really do level cap, especially with Frost. I'm just not interested in that. So can't be too sure about that. But basically, for all the relevant content that DE wants you to be playing, Snow Globe can protect you. So mobile defense, interception, standard defense, stuff like that. It's incredibly good. And likewise, again, you get Frost kind of early on-ish. And having a Frost on your team when you're early game, like MRs, like 1 through 10 or whatever, and you're able to, there's a lot of like missions that people aren't really playing anymore. Like as you complete the star chart, defenses, interceptions, mobile defenses, stuff like that. Having Frost means that you can kind of be a one-man army on those missions where you might only have 1 or 0 teammates in some cases. Ramble aside, also this ability can kind of be cast, like imagine you have a teammate here, right, that you're trying to res, and you cast your 3, all the enemies are frozen and pushed like pretty far away, and I also believe they take true damage upon collision with the environment, which is pretty good. I'm sure you could find a build around that, but yeah, it freezes them pretty good and pushes them very, very far away. Look at that. So yeah, if my teammate needs to get res here, I've got 4 seconds of invulnerability, and then the entire health of the Snow Globe, Frost can res like incredibly effectively. Which is nice. It's not going to be something you run into often, but yeah, Snow Globe is incredibly good. Likewise, you can have, and this follows the interception thing I talked about earlier, Frost can have up to 4 Snow Globes. So, you know, one for each point, one for each teammate, whatever. And upon casting the 5th globe, the first placed one will just pop and be replaced with the new 4th. So pretty simple. These enemies are all out of whack now for my demonstration, but that's totally fine. Just note, Snow Globe is incredibly good. Likewise, I will mention this when we get to builds, but Snow Globe's health actually scales with your power strength and your armor as well. Meaning that in that earlier example where I casted my Snow Globe in front of a bunch of enemies, that means that it'll get stronger because my passive will be procced. There'll be guys with cold around me when I cast the Snow Globe. So now I have power strength, 1,000 extra armor potentially that will contribute to the health. Also note that, as you can see, this guy is constantly getting procced with cold up to a point, so they're staying frozen, and there's an augment that will help with that as well. So yeah, Snow Globe, incredibly competent defense, one of the best in the game, one of the like OG defensive abilities, and pretty simple to use. I don't think it's the best. I think Limbo Cheese might be a little bit better, but in terms of just pure simplicity, Frost really gets it done in terms of defending objectives. Alright, and another quick note as well. Also, I did double check the wiki to make sure. Yeah, so it can deal up to 50% of true damage when they're pushed away like this. So there is, yeah, like look at that. That is half this guy's health taken away by one cast, which is pretty funny. But they're displaced again anyway. So one thing that I forgot to mention is that you can recast Snow Globes within each other, and they will combine their health, which allows you to spam cast. So you might want to build a good amount of energy on Frost, stuff like that. Even if the current Snow Globe is damaged, you can recast. They will combine each other's health. Likewise, this does not count. As you can see, they kind of replace each other. This does not count towards your maximum of 4 Snow Globes. So just noting that, that's straight from the wiki. I had to double check because I think that's a pretty significant thing. So if you're trying to set down a set and forget Snow Globe, one that you're going to leave for a bit at an objective, you might want to cast like 3 or 4 on top of each other so that their health combines, and you don't have to maintain it nearly as much. So I just want when I do these guys, I double check the wiki to make sure there's no key things that I missed, and those I did miss real quick, so I just wanted to fact check myself and add any additional information that might be important. Likewise, in the comments, please don't be afraid to add extra things. I plan on remastering these guides like every year or so, or if I really miss something, then sooner than that. Just put anything in the comments, and I will write it down into the script and get it fixed up. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next ability. Alright, moving on to the big kahuna of Frost's abilities, we have Avalanche. So what this ability does is you press 4, enemies get frozen, they get their armor stripped, and then they shatter, dealing damage around them. As you can see here, most of their armor is gone. And they get 10 cold stacks, and then when that cold, this is how just cold works in general. After an enemy gets frozen, they have 3 residual stacks left over, so they're still quite slow. But we can, as you see, we cast it again. They're full strip now, totally frozen. That's an amp to crit damage. They're frozen, so they're easy to hit, and their armor is gone. So that's on its own, that's quite a bit. But you'll see this ability gets absurd. The base range is quite good on this beginner build I have on for you guys. It's, I think, like 21 meters, and the strongest build I've been able to get in terms of support Frost is about 41 meters. This is one of the best armor strips and in general like debuffs in the game for the range that it has and for how low effort it is. But notice on cast, I basically get my full passive. As you can see, 1000 Fortify and Freeze up in the upper right hand. That was very easy. So now when we look at things like Ice Wave and Freeze, we just can't help but feel a little, you know, it doesn't feel very... basically, Frost 4 kind of dominates the power budget of his kit, which I'm fine with personally, because of the way that the build turns out anyways. But just know that Avalanche is just incredibly good. The damage will also nuke at low levels. I will show you. I try not to take up too much time, but I kind of accept that my genre of video is just making things take way longer than they have to, but I enjoy it. So, okay, let's see here. So, let's get an Orkin battle group here. That is level 20. And you will see... boom. Yeah, that's like... if you're a new player, you see that shit, you're getting pretty excited. So yeah, basically the premise is that it strips the armor before the damage is dealt, which is incredibly good. So that's with a beginner build, by the way. That is with like the most basic build. I'll show you guys in just a quick second. It was able to nuke those enemies in one cast. With the streamline, that's 75 energy, and you've nuked like 20 meters worth of space. So Avalanche is incredibly good. It is Frost's best ability. But like once I get into Augments and the build, you'll understand how absurd this Warframe gets because of Avalanche. So we're gonna move on to builds, all that good stuff. Thank you guys for your patience. Appreciate it. Alrighty, it is time for builds and augments. So fortunately, we're actually going to be able to do this in one go here. I'm going to talk about augments first, and then I have my beginner build. So if you're a beginner and you want to take a screenshot, go ahead and do that right now. It's a real basic build. I would put Icy Avalanche here, or maybe some health or armor in this empty slot here. But anyway, Icy Avalanche. This is the real shit we got here. Avalanche Augment. Allies within infinity range are coated in ice that grants 60 overguard per enemy hit. Overguard increases by 20% of your armor once per enemy. This augment makes Frost so broken, it's insane. This is like, you get like kind of, this is maybe some glazing, but this is like almost Dante levels of overguard on command on an ability that you're casting anyway that applies insane debuffs that only get stronger as I show you guys my other builds. Icy Avalanche is insane. You give your teammates a ton of overguard on command very easily. Do note that basically the way that you're going to increase the overguard is by increasing your armor and increasing range, because it's a per enemy hit basis, meaning that the more range you have, the better. The more armor that you have on yourself, the better. As you see, if I slot Icy Avalanche in here, you can see armor to overguard conversion right there. 31% of your armor once per enemy. That's like, it's, again, this is per enemy, so like you can't, 60 overguard, that doesn't sound all that great, but increases 20%, like that doesn't sound that great, but it's once per enemy. So once you get into like Steel Path, you are coughing up, like I've gotten casts where I've hit like 6,000 overguard per cast on an ability that's stripping armor, applying, no spoilers for the build. Let's wait a minute. Okay, moving on. Freeze Force. Freeze Augment, hold, cast, will grant all allies within 15 meters an additional 100% cold damage to their attacks for 40 seconds. The range scales with range. The cold damage scales with strength, and the duration scale, or the 40-second scales with duration. Freeze Force is basically similar to Icy Avalanche. It's essentially a must-take for a different reason. It's strong, no doubt about it. Being able to apply it to your teammates feels great. It falls into the support category that I think, well, I know Frost is in, right? And applying cold, this basically turns any weapon that has like decent status chance and high fire rate into a Frost beam, in addition to what it was already doing, and that's really fun. If you build for it properly, it's pretty fun. Freeze Force is in every single Frost build I have, besides this beginner one, which I'm obviously not using, but this is one that I put together just to help out beginners. It's real basic. 2 Auger mods in there, which I highly recommend. especially if you don't have Icy Avalanche. But anyway, moving on. So Frost's augments are kind of in this weird situation where 2 of them are basically must-have broken. 2 of them are kind of worthless, and Biting Frost finds itself in the middle of a divorce dispute. Frost gains 200% critical chance and plus 200% critical damage additive against frozen enemies. This has no scaling with Frost stacks, like cold stacks. This is only when the enemy is frozen. This means that against enemies that have status caps, like Acolytes, Legacites, so on and so forth, enemies that cannot be frozen, you are down a mod slot. If the enemy is not frozen, 9 cold stacks, right? You are down a mod slot. This means this mod is good, provided that you have like crit weapons, right? Also, I would recommend, which this sounds kind of counterintuitive, but I promise it's not. I have pretty extensive experience on Frost. Running a companion that has like a freeze ray kind of beam, like a beam weapon, and you don't even have to build the cold onto it, because if you're using freeze force, which you should be, your sentinel will have any beam weapon they use become a freeze ray. So you can also use Shivering Contagion. It sounds counterintuitive. You're like, oh, you're already Frost, you're already freezing everyone. You don't want to have to always cast your Avalanche over and over. You don't really want to have to cast the tap cast of freeze, right? So just have a freeze ray attached to your hip at all times and you'll be good. That's just my personal belief. I play a lot of, when I'm making these guides and writing scripts, I play a ton of the frame, like tens and tens of games of the frame. And to my experience, it's been very beneficial. I have a Nautilus Prime with Corden and a Tazakor, and it works really great. So now we have the 2, okay, Chilling Globe is fine. Snow Globe Augment, enemies that enter have a 50% chance to become frozen solid for 10 seconds. This 50% doesn't scale with anything. If it did, maybe it'd be better. Who's to say? This augment is particularly fine, and I say fine, it's okay, I guess it's good, against Infested. If you are in the niche situation where you are defending an objective against Infested, this is quite good. Infested are mostly melee units, which means they actually have to enter your globe without damaging it, and because of that, they will end up frozen. I've done this recently just to test it. It works actually pretty well. Freezing an enemy for 10 seconds means they're basically going to die, and especially now that you can actually shoot into the globe, because I played Frost a long time ago when you couldn't do that. Like this augment, if you are playing in that niche situation where you are against Infested or a lot of other melee units, Tekrot maybe, I don't know, then Chilling Globe's fine, but even then it might not be worth the mod slot. And then we have, it's not really Ice Wave Impedance's fault, but this augment sucks. Basically, it creates a slow trail that can proc cold. So with this augment, theoretically, you can full freeze with 1 cast of Ice Wave. You are not pressing the 2 button on default Frost. It is not happening. Do not do it. So yeah, this is not really the augment's fault, but the ability stinks. So we're gonna move on to builds, and you're gonna see exactly what I got going on and why I take so much pride. And I think these builds are really insane. All right, so real super duper quick. This is Brozyme's setup with Zada's Whisper and the Kuva Sobek. This setup is insane. If you're watching this video, if you're looking for a video on Frost, you've probably already watched his video. So go watch that. But this build is super basic. Basically, Zada's Whisper plus Acid Shells in the Sobek is broken, especially when combined with Freeze Force. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. The build's really good. Anyway, so my 2 builds are Nourish and Breach Surge. Similar builds, similar interchangeable things going on, but I'll explain mod by mod and then arcane by arcane. So Stand United, you can really take any aura you want here. Armor is just good because I don't build it on Frost. I could replace adaptation with armor probably. It helps the health of Snow Globe, and it helps with the armor to overguard conversion on Avalanche with Icy Avalanche. This is my only source of armor really. I could totally easily replace this with something else if I wanted to. Power Drift and Cunning Drift are both really good. Cunning Drift is the range version, and it's pretty good. I just don't find it necessary. I prefer, especially on this Nourish setup, I definitely prefer, actually Cunning Drift might be pretty good. Anyway, I'll think about it later. Anyway, on this Nourish setup, I like having the power strength because what this whole setup does is it makes it so your teammates have bonus damage from 2 abilities, which are Freeze, Force, and Nourish. You want power strength in those percentages. Augur Secrets is the same story. Basically, you give yourself more power strength, which allows you to, first of all, hit the cap on Avalanche to full strip in one cast. Full stripping in one cast isn't as required as it used to be way back in the day. However, Avalanche is an ultimate ability. It costs 100 energy. It has a long cast time. Like what I was showing you before is with a casting speed shard in my Frost. So like, yeah, just get this to a 100% armor reduction. Even if you need to use multi-augmented, that's totally fine. But the Nourish, Freeze Force, you want power strength anyway, so it's going to happen. Augur Reach, every Frost build should have Augur Reach and Stretch. 175% should be like mandatory. Avalanche is too good of an ability to rob it of that. As you can see with just 2 strength mods, or two range mods rather, 26.25 meters, that's pretty damn competent. And with Cutting Drift, that would actually get a little bit higher. I think I might actually have to do that, at least on the next build I'm going to show you. Alright, so the Avalanche, again, basically mandatory in every Frost build. Primed Continuity helps in this build quite a lot. It helps with the freeze duration. It helps with these 2 buff durations, which you want. You don't want your teammates constantly losing their freeze force or their nourish. You don't want to have to follow them around to keep it on them. Adaptation is just survivability. This could be replaced with armor. This could be replaced with a lot of things. You're gaining so much overguard when you're playing Frost that it's like, whatever, man. It helps. Stretch, mentioned earlier with the range stuff. Some version of Intensify you're going to want to hit. That's your main method of hitting the power strength required here without augmented. So yeah, pretty important. Again, this also has a full strip without augmented, which is a preference thing. You don't have to build this much power strength. I just like it, and for Breach Surge it's also quite helpful. And then Freeze Force, I kind of forgot to touch on this earlier. Freeze Force is not must take because it's super broken, even though it's very strong. It's must take because you can't. Frost's Ice Wave is already a bum ass ability, and if you don't take Freeze Force, Frost now has 2 bum ass abilities because Freeze is just also a worse Avalanche. That's why Freeze Force is must take, not because it's insanely broken for any kind of hidden reason. It does what it says it does. It's just you need to not rob Frost of 2 abilities. Just let him have 1 bum ability so you can replace it. So in terms of arcanes, multi-augmented is personal preference mostly. As you can see, it's very easy to hit the full strip cap without it, but I like the power strength for Nourish and for Breach Surge and for Freeze Force's percent. I just think it's really good. Arcane Truculence is where shit gets wacky. Okay, so when gaining 3,000 or more Overguard threshold, release a 30-meter radial attack that applies max viral status stacks. This is insane. Usually, especially in the Steel Path and in the more difficult content with a lot of enemies, you will be gaining 3,000 Overguard in one cast of Avalanche almost every single time. And that means that in a 30-meter radius, you are applying 10 max viral stacks. So now we have to understand like where this is going. Okay, I press Avalanche, I press 4 a single time. I have now given my entire team a healthy chunk of Overguard. I've applied 10 stacks of Cold, which is increased crit damage. Enemy is frozen still. That's nice. 10 stacks of Viral. Enemy is, what is it, like 350% more vulnerable to all damage sources? That's insane. On top of that, I have buffed my teammates' guns to deal bonus viral damage, bonus cold damage, along with viral status, cold status, which is kind of irrelevant because they're obviously max stacked after Avalanche. So yeah, I am with one button press, I am providing like some of the most valuable buffs to my teammates and most valuable debuffs to my enemies. This build's really good. Breach Surge is my preferred playstyle. You get a little bit more out of it, and in my opinion, it feels a little more like cohesive. Generally, the main decision maker is going to be what kind of weapon you're using on Frost, because Frost doesn't really, especially late game, he doesn't really kill with his abilities. Late game, he is a support effectively, which I enjoy a lot. Nourish is better if you're using AoE weapons, I would say. The main purpose of Breach Surge is to not only to provide additional support with those sparks, but for me it means when I'm using my preferred weapons, which are like marksmanship weapons, it means that for 1 bullet I'm usually getting 2 bodies, because the Breach Surge from my single target weapon will fly off and absolutely like unexist the person next to my target. So I enjoy it. Breach Surge is also just another debuff to apply. So now you've got enemies that are blinded, frozen, vulnerable to damage, like whatever, And also, the sparks are flying everywhere from your teammates and from your own shots, and everything's dying, and it's so much fun. And this also means that enemies that are... So the Breach Surge radius is 30 meters, the Truculence radius is 30 meters, this Avalanche radius is 26 meters. So, like, everything within, like, a 25-meter radius is just absolutely so unreal screwed when you're running this build. It is so, so fun. And your teammates, again, are still buffed by Freeze Force. As I explained, the weapon you use kind of determines what build you want to use here, or like whatever you think you'll have fun with. Breach Surge utilizes the power strength here in a very relevant fashion, but the range would also be good. Okay, some augment stuff. You have other options. Multificiency is fine for the Nourish build in particular because duration is very comfortable. There's also this funny little thing called Arcane Ice Storm, which I don't have fully stacked. I just find that duration... This build's good this one's good on the Nourish build, ability strength and duration. The Breach Surge build is my main build, so I don't use this because the duration is not nearly as good on the Breach Surge build comparative to Truculence and Augmented. Okay, yapping is almost over, I promise. If you really enjoy the support playstyle, I'm going to show you a little build pivot that I think makes this build, like, it makes Frost one of the most insane supports in the entire game. So the main pivot we're going to make here, and it's going to be a bit sloppy, but I think I remember how to do it properly. So what we're doing is we want to replace Intensify with Precision Intensify. So the reason... Oh, God, yeah, I'm not going to have room. Okay, we'll figure it out. Anyways, Freeze Force stays there. Just use your imagination, okay? Precision Intensify basically moves your ability strength budget all into Avalanche, which means that you will have a full strip with little to no effort. I think with just Precision Intensify, yeah, let me see. Is that, yeah, like that's like the only... I'll remove Power Drift for you, just to show. Once you have a Precision Intensify in there, your ability is now full stripping. What you're going to slide in is overextended. So you have a little bit of compensation to do now in terms of power strength, which I think Umbral Intensify might get the job done, actually. Oh, shit, whoops. Okay, so... Oh, wait, wait, why am I so goofy? Anyway, you now have to find... Okay, I got it. Trust me, I know how to work a keyboard. Anyways, so what this does is it makes it so that the range on Avalanche is now almost 40 meters. That is so much range. Like, if you don't play Warframe, you don't really understand, but I'm assuming you guys play. 40 meters of range is, like, the most you can ask an ability to do on most tile sets. And so now you have the 30-meter viral proccing, you have a 50-meter breach surge. Like, the value you get out of this is so... I'm going to put my normal build back together real quick. But the value you get out of this is so ridiculous from this just little pivot. The sacrifices you're making is a weaker freeze, which is actually fine for a variety of reasons. The main being that those augments, like Freeze Force, Shock Trooper, all of that, they actually can hamper your build in a couple of ways. I think they actually affect weighting of your weapons, which is a little bit weird, but that's not really relevant here. I'm actually going to probably slide some armor on for now, but ooh, I could do double. Anyway, that's not relevant right now. Anywho, so yeah, that's the main pivot. If you like really want to play full support Frost, doing a build that utilizes Precision Intensify over your Umbral Intensify, and then that utilizes Overextended, gives you the most ridiculous range possible with a 40-meter full strip, 30 meters of viral. Like, I'm talking some crazy ass shit. 50-meter breach surge, it's crazy. This build I prefer because to me 25 meters is more than enough to get work done, and it condenses everything into a nice little area. And it means my breach surge is still doing a ton of damage. My freeze force is still doing what I want it to do. And yeah, so that's augments, that's arcanes, that's mods, and then I will just show off my my loadout here. So I do use energy max shards. This is pretty relevant, but as we discussed earlier, there's a flex slot here, so you can put flow in there. Another great solution to energy is actually Arcane Battery. It's insanely good. Arcane Battery is really good on Frost because he gains armor through his passive, and you'll be building armor as well. So in many cases, I would actually run Battery. I ran it in an old build, but to me, Multi-Augmented and Arcane Truculence are just too valuable to sacrifice, and I've got a lot of Top Forge Blue sitting around, to be super real with you. So that's kind of the case we're in. And then I have my government mandated parkour velocity shard and government mandated casting speed shard. Especially on Frost, God, casting speed is so valuable. I can see a world where I use my flex slot on natural talent just for the 50% casting speed. Focus school is pretty up in the air. There's a case to be made for Vazarin, I think it is, because you have the increased affinity range, which helps with, I think, Freeze Force and Icy Avalanche. But I like having the energy on command with Zeneric. It's very personal preference. Frost doesn't really rely on it all too much. I have the Archetytron here for a slam build. Latron Prime is just my favorite primary, so I'll be using that. And then my Sentinel, I have the Tazakor build here. It's just a really basic priming build. And remember that Freeze Force applies to your Sentinel, or whatever companion you have. And that means that now this Tazakor is applying cold on top of all of this, so they're getting fully primed for aptitude while being frozen. Here's the Nautilus build. These are nothing particularly special. Nothing to worry about there. So we are now going to get onto the demonstration. I will kind of explain the playstyle as it goes, but Frost is really basic, thankfully. Some of these other frames that I have guides being written on, or that I've already written, are kind of complex. Frost is thankfully super basic, so we'll get into it. Thank you so much for your patience. Hope you guys have enjoyed. If there's anything I missed, please don't be afraid to put it in the comments. I love, you guys have been so positive with comments. It really means the whole world to me. I feel like I have such a constructive audience, and I really appreciate that. Okay, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, now I'm going to show you how the build works real quick. I recorded the normal demonstration I do for these videos, which is I go into like a level 130, level 230, whatever, Lua survival, conjunction survival. But in this case, I have that recorded. I realized that it's kind of hard to tell exactly what the build is doing from that footage, so I'm going to show you in a little bit of a slower fashion. So first, what you're going to do is you have your enemies here. Obviously, you're going to cast Freeze Force, which is by hold casting freeze. And then you're going to Breach Surge, and then you're going to press 4. So now we have a full strip. We've gained 5,000 Overguard, which means we're going to proc the 10 viral stacks. That's 10 cold stacks from Avalanche, 10 viral stacks from Truculence. That doesn't last the longest. And then when we shoot enemies, they're Breach Surged, right? So for every bullet I shoot out of this Latron, a spark flies off and just ices a poor random guy. As you can see. Just spark flies over. I'll have to Breach Surge again here to keep demonstrating, but as you can see, spark flies over, absolutely smokes him. There are weapons that are good, and also I believe the Breach Surge sparks are affected by Biting Frost, which is like way more huge than I kind of imagined it, and it might be affected by Freeze Force too. I don't actually know. That part of coding I try not to touch on because DE isn't very clear about it at all, so I try to consider it as just an added bonus in case it ever gets removed. But I'll spawn enemies another time, and do it a little bit faster for you, so I can kind of show you what's going on. So you'll cast Freeze Force, and then one thing to note, and I note it when I do the demonstration, is that you can animation cancel Breach Surge with Avalanche. So like this, and notice the animation kind of goes off at once, and these breaches, the sparks will start flying, and off of 2 casts, the enemies are full stripped, 10 battle stacks. Some have even just randomly died, which I don't fully know why that happens, to tell the truth. I think it's just damage coming from Breach Surge. It's also why you want to cast Breach Surge first, is that way the Avalanche's damage can proc more Breach Surge sparks. So that's why I cast in that order. And the animation cancel helps a lot. So with the Latron Prime, it looks pretty good, but with the weapon I'm going to use in the demonstration, it gets a little bit absurd. And I think that this is the strongest version purely because it's more synergistic with Breach Surge. I'll show the Tenet. This is not actually the build I use in the demonstration. The build I use in the demonstration is wrong. It's missing 2 mods. So I'll be showing you this. Notice that this is a Magnetic Blast build with Frostbite on it. That's because Freeze Force allows us to run Frostbite, which is really, really significant. So now it's a blast weapon with a higher fire rate and high status with decent crit. It doesn't make the most use out of Biting Frost, but it makes enough. Now, observe this. So all I'm going to do is what I usually do. Freeze Force. I will animation cancel, which you don't have to every time. I just enjoy it. I think it's fun. I'll press 2, press 4, hold M1. They have vanished off of my screen. They are no longer there. Now, granted, is my Galaxian quite good to the point where it can kind of do that on its own a little bit? A little bit, yeah. But I shot down that line and only really killed enemies within that line. Once we're talking, I'll clear the enemies again, spawn them. But once we do this, freeze force, breach surge, 4 avalanche. First of all, some just die off rip, and then once I do this, all of the enemies die. A couple straggles on the end there. So yeah, breach surge is unfortunately like can be I'm not gonna say restrictive, but it really favors certain kinds of weapons. But this is just the bait. I'll do it one more time for you. This is just real basic. Freeze force is on, breach surge, avalanche, full strip, enemies die. Just that's it. That is it. So that's we're going to be seeing a lot of that in the demonstration. Hopefully you understand the build better. Essentially all it is gain overguard to stay alive, proc truculence, which, you know, 30 meters of viral all around you, 10 stacks of cold, biting frost on your weapon, freeze force. It's just, you do so much debuffing and buffing, it's ridiculous. Almost any weapon is good with it. And keep in mind that everything that this build does is I'm not going to say selfless, but it's done to everyone. All of your teammates gain the advantages. Breach surge, avalanche, freeze force. Frost shares every single thing that makes him OP with his teammates, which is a very, very good thing, because it means that even if they are bringing like a weaker build or whatever, they get to feel strong too and be defended too by the overguard. So we're gonna get into the demonstration. Hopefully that made you understand why this build is so goddamn good, but I think the demonstration will do a perfect job of that. Moving on. Alrighty, gang, we're popping a relic here. Let's see if I have any Aurelia relics. I do have one. I already farmed a prime, but figured, you know, 'tis the season or whatever. Yellow prime access looks great. I would have bought it, but I got, you know, got student loans, so that won't be happening. But I did farm ranch. He's super fun. Anyways, this is a Frost video. Frost is unfortunately quite the boring frame. So when we're talking about a situation where like my last video was on a frame like Kome or Protea, frames that have a lot more depth to them, Frost is thankfully a very simple support frame, and that's all there is to it. So let's get to it. So all we do, real basic, press find a group of enemies. You're gonna press 4. They will all be frozen. As you can see, 10 viral stacks there, and you just mow them down. You're gonna hold 1. This will apply freeze force, and what that means, and I guess the synergy I should have mentioned really, is you can use primary frostbite on any weapon with freeze force. So that's what I've got going on here. I've got a different bit, like I've got a build that doesn't have cold on it on my Tenet Galaxian, but because I have freeze force, I'm able to run it no matter what, which is incredibly strong. So yeah, this is really it. Overguard as a defense mechanism, people have opinions on them that they are certainly allowed to have. It's just a pretty boring way of surviving, and not to say that shield gating is some sort of like innovative genius 3 zillion IQ move, but yeah, Overguard's really boring. It's a really boring means of surviving, but you know, you're giving it to your teammates at least, and that's kind of cool. I guess I really don't know. I mean, also Frost kills with weapons. That's what he does. Like his abilities don't kill past a certain point in the game, and that point comes pretty early. So you're gonna want to get yourself a pretty good weapon. And Frost's buff, you know, Frost can buff weapons that are traditionally not as good, which is helpful. Don't forget to recast your freeze force. It's got pretty good duration, about a minute, with minimal duration. The augments like that, shock trooper, fireball frenzy, all that good stuff, they have pretty good base duration built in. So as you can see, enemies are fully frozen. They get 10 viral stacks. Like, it's just so messed up. I mean, what we're doing to these enemies is quite messed up. There's a Jade Light beaming me down, but I have Overguard, so it just does not matter. One little tip with this build that I have really been enjoying is that I can cancel the latter half of the Breach Surge animation, or really like damn near the entire thing, with the cast of Avalanche, which feels really, really good and really fun. So you'll see here, like, I'll get like a group of enemies and I'll press 2 and then immediately press 4, and it's like the Breach Surge animation didn't even happen, but they're all marked. So in this case, I'm using the Tenet Galaxian, Sparks Fly. Like, it's just, oh, this frame is absurd. Like I said, I play a lot of the frame beforehand. I had to listen to my demons to not not use my Latron Prime against these enemies, because that would have just been too stupid of a display. I guess I could do some slamming too, for you the melee heads in the audience. But yeah, this is the most basic. This is just it. This is all there is to it. Frost is very simple, very good. As you can see, my Overguard hasn't really been chipped away at much, which is good. And notice also that, unfortunately, I don't get much out of Snow Globe. Snow Globe is like a pretty, you know, it's a great ability, but you really only pull it out when you super need it. A situation that I could see it being quite good in is like if you find yourself on a tile set with a dead-end hallway, you could sit there like this and camp it like so. But I just don't think that that's a very fun play. So that's what I used to do when I was new, actually. That's how I really enjoyed Frost, is I would play like Bloons TD6 and hang out. But I guess I'll start slamming for a bit, especially with the Acolyte coming on, so I'm dealing with him. But yeah, against this Acolyte, biting Frost will just do nothing because he can't be frozen. However, his armor can still be stripped, and he's still going to get that warhead on his forehead, and that's about it. This is a bit of a drag of a demonstration, I fear, but that's just kind of how it goes. I'm getting jumped too. That's delightful. Oh, thank God. All right, let's see where Suda is. Recast our freeze force. Freeze all the enemies. Jump slam. All right. Where are you? Oh, here we are. Okay. And we'll just, boop, like so. It's a pretty, yeah, that's what we're doing here. Bring the Glaxium back out. I guess I could show a quick little demonstration here with my Lex Prime. So when I play this frame normally, you'll see I'll skull plug, oh my God, a sorry motherfucker in the head with like my Latron, or my Lex in this case, and then the Surge will fly. And I'll basically just be getting like BOGO on my bullets, which is really good. It's still just a slower pace of killing that I don't particularly enjoy, but you kind of get to do it when you have like teammates who are keeping the KPM up. You know, they're playing Saren or whatever. So yeah, this is really it. We're about to be on our way out, and not a modicum of struggle at all. This guy's being kind of annoying. I guess I'll hit him with the Lex Incarnate real quick. Peace out, buddy. And let's open our relic and get out of here. Goodness gracious, 122 million on the Lex Prime shot. Again, unfortunately, Frost, he is a weapons frame. He's a weapons platform support frame. So there isn't a lot of what he does is going to be a reflection of what his weapons are doing. We'll kill these guys real quick and get on out of here. So yeah, Frost's the whole identity is kind of as like a debuffer, support, defender. I hope that like more defense kind of objectives come out in the future, because as of now, like there just isn't a whole lot of incentive to play the defense game modes, which is really unfortunate because Frost would really exceed at that. Goodness, I'm getting smoked on. There we go. Okay, let's get out of here. So yeah, I wish that was a more substantial demonstration. It kind of turned into a yap session, but that's how that goes. So yeah, Frost, basically spam your 4 to keep energy up and use your gun to deal damage. There isn't really, like in my script, I always write like, okay, here's how you're supposed to survive and here's how you're supposed to deal damage. Dealing damage is kind of done through your weapons exclusively on Frost. You are able to debuff enemies and buff yourself to such an insane extent. But at the end of the day, it's real basic. Press your 4 for Overguard. You've got some armor built in. You can panic cast your 3. But that's about it. Real simple. So we'll get to the conclusory bit. Thank you guys for watching. Oh my God, listening to me. I don't know how you do it. God bless your souls. But I'll see you in a second for the outro. And I appreciate your patience. Take care. See you in a little bit. Oh, and as you can see, I'm using the Velimir Proto Frame skin. But I'll hop on the regular drip here. Anyways, Frost is insane. There is no real two ways about it. He's a little bit less glamorous, I would say, than a lot of supports, and a lot of frames in general. Again, he doesn't really nuke past beginner levels, but like people tend to underappreciate. I mean, we're talking like Freeze Force buff, Nourish buff, the Breach Surge debuff, and buff of damage, the sparks that are flying. Snow Globe, again, It's an insane ability. It just fills a niche that in modern Warframe is not always the most required. But that's okay. Nothing's wrong with that. When it's needed, it's there. I've on multiple occasions used Snow Globe to resurrect a teammate who was downed in like ETA or EDA or whatever. It's basically just a guaranteed res, which is super nice. Admittedly, most of your power budget's going to come from Avalanche. The icy Avalanche, Overguard, the proccing Arcane Truculence because of that. Frost is a great example of a frame that starts very basic. You acquire him, he does his basic stuff, but as you get more and more of the working parts, in this case, would be Truculence, would be Icy Avalanche, and a Helmet ability over his Ice Wave, like this frame will grow with you as you learn more about the game and how to play it properly. As you can see, I put Cunning Drift in there for that run. I enjoyed that. I guess I could show you the Galaxian build if you guys want to see that real quick, because I think it is kind of relevant. Oh my god, is it? I think this is the build I just went and used. So yeah, as you can see, Frost was able to do that with 2 mods missing on my weapon, because I just formatted. That's really embarrassing, but also a testament to how good this Warframe really is. So yeah, to summarize, Frost is insane. I could really truthfully has convinced me that he is one of the best in the game as a support. Unfortunately, if you're looking for a nuker, you're not going to find that here. But if you're someone who enjoys like a pseudo kind of like, tanky support playstyle, who isn't just like there to heal you or make you feel like, this is the real deal. Insane debuffs, some of the best debuffs, while bolstering defenses as well. It's not, you're not Wisp, you're not Trinity, you're not solely a support, but you kind of touch on everything, debuffing, buffing. You don't strictly do one thing. So Frost is insane. I highly suggest that you try him out. If you're a new player, understand that the mileage will vary quite a bit. I still think he's a must get due to Snow Globe and how much that can help you clear the star chart early on, and it helps out your teammates. And if you can get your hands on Icy Avalanche early, it should cost like 10 plat. Hit me up. I can get it to you for free if you want. So yeah, Frost is insanely good. A little bit boring, would be my main downside. If I were to change anything about him, I think, again, I don't think he needs buffs. I don't believe that even a little bit. I think it would be interesting for Freeze to work on enemies like Acolytes. Maybe not Legacytes, but you know how Cora's Ensnare can ensnare Acolytes, which is pretty insane. I think if Freeze hits a target directly, regardless of not totally regardless of their status immunity, but like enemies like Legacytes should be able to be, or like Acolytes rather, should be able to be frozen as if they're being ensnared. Because, it's not just like Avalanche that hits regardless. You actually have to aim, freeze, and hit it. So I think it'd be kind of cool if that were the case. Ice Wave, I don't see a future for. I'm cool with that ability staying awful forever. Maybe have it full freeze. Maybe have it proc slash. That's what I would do personally, is have it proc slash. But anyways, that's about it for the video. God, I don't know how you guys sit through these things. I appreciate you so much. Again, I'm going to try to get more regular videos out. Just know that for those who are watching and those who are subbed, I appreciate you like endlessly. It means the whole world to me. I'm trying to get this channel up and off the ground. Anywhere in the air would be nice. So I understand I need to be uploading more. But thank you for your patience. You guys have a blessed night, day, whatever. And hopefully I'll be talking to you within the next week. I do have some final stuff going on. But I'm going to try to get her done. So thank you guys so much for your patience. Take care. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.